It's Thursday, March 13th, 2025, and we've got a pretty big update on our upcoming major storm. It's unfortunate, but I think this is going to be a pretty big deal, and I hope that you guys help us out here and share the video so we can get some of this potentially life-saving information in front of as many people as possible, because we've got 70 million people under the gun for severe weather just tomorrow, and it's going to continue into Saturday and Sunday as well. And this looks like the real deal. These are going to be dangerous, destructive storms, so let's get right into it. It all starts tomorrow with a moderate risk of severe weather in Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Tennessee, specifically mostly around the St. Louis and Springfield and Peoria areas. That's where we're going to be most concerned about our potential major impacts from severe weather. But I think that well up into Cedar Rapids and Des Moines, all the way over to Chicago, we could see some damage from some of these thunderstorms during the overnight period. And then the farther south we go, into Memphis, even down into northern portions of Mississippi and Alabama, we could also have pretty significant strong storms as well Friday night. Now, the main threat with these storms on Friday is going to be the winds. We've got a big time straight line damaging wind threat, 45% chance of seeing significant damage from severe thunderstorms in the pink area. The red is 30%, and then the dotted lines there, that's where we've got the hatched risk, and that indicates that the damage is likely going to be significant. We're talking about widespread trees down, roofs potentially coming off of houses. We're talking about hurricane force wind gusts anywhere in that hatched area. That's going to be a possibility tomorrow. We've also got a little bit of a chance of some hail. It's not going to be as big of a deal as our other threats, but specifically around St. Louis, maybe down towards Memphis, we could see some pretty large hail tomorrow. And then, of course, we've got ourselves a very large 10% hatched risk of tornadoes from southeast Iowa all the way down into Mississippi and Alabama. Once again, this includes Memphis, this includes St. Louis, and this is going to be a pretty dangerous part of the storm, because although the tornado situation isn't going to be the main part of this mode, because it's going to be kind of linear, the line of storms, but if we do get tornadoes, if we do get some broken line action, and we do actually see some supercells able to make contact with the ground, or even if we see embedded tornadoes in the line, a lot of those tornadoes are going to happen overnight. So nocturnal tornadoes, nothing we ever want to have to deal with, but that's exactly what's on the table for Friday night. And then everything's going to continue to move east into Saturday, where we have a very rare day 4 moderate risk for portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. This has only ever happened a handful of times. The last time that it happened was March 22nd, 2022. So this is a pretty big deal. The fact that we have enough confidence already to issue this high of an outlook 3 days ahead of time is something that we very rarely see. So I'm trying to get you to understand how big of a deal Saturday could possibly get. Now, we are still 3 days away, so hopefully things downtrend or mellow out. But right now, it looks like it's going to be a destructive day of severe weather, especially in that red area. We're also concerned about our friends in the orange. That's an enhanced risk. That includes Atlanta, Georgia. That includes Huntsville, Alabama. We're talking about Chattanooga, Knoxville, Nashville, Clarksville. This is y'all country, okay? There's a lot of people out here that are watching this right now. I want you guys to take this seriously and prepare for those tornado warnings as we go into Saturday. We're not going to know the specific details of what the tornado chances are and stuff until tomorrow, but I think they're going to be quite high. This looks like a supercellular, long track, potentially violent tornado day where we see multiple tornadoes going on at the same time, and it's just really unfortunate because if everything goes as currently modeled, we're going to have a very significant day of severe weather on our hands for Saturday. So go ahead and get your plans in place right now to know exactly what you're going to do whenever that tornado warning comes through on Saturday if you live in any of the highlighted areas here, and don't be scared, be prepared. Let's take a look at what the radar could look like as we go through the day tomorrow. This is just a simulation. It's not exact, and we're still not sure exactly when the storms are going to start firing off tomorrow. It's going to be sometime between 3 and 6 p.m. But what we do know is that when storms do get going, they are very quickly going to explode into a damaging squall line of severe thunderstorms that extend from Minnesota all the way down into central Missouri. By the time we get to 9 or 10 p.m., this is going to be causing potentially widespread damage from southeast Illinois all the way down into the greater eastern Missouri area. I think that we'll see the storms make it to St. Louis sometime between 10 p.m. and midnight, somewhere in there. And what's really concerning about the latest HRRR is it shows that line breaking up a little bit and becoming more discrete. It's allowing for more space between the storms, and that could actually enhance the tornado threat a little bit. But I still want to make sure that everybody understands that our main problem is going to be the straight line combined damaging winds. We won't know until the storm's over, but this might be something that could be considered a derecho by the time we're all said and done. But after we get past midnight and that squall line starts to break apart a little bit, our attention is going to switch to the more multicellular mode that happens farther south and even into the Ohio Valley. By the way, the HRRR shows some of these cells making it all the way past Indianapolis as we get into the early morning hours on Saturday. These could produce some severe weather and some hail and maybe even some tornadoes, so we want you guys to be aware of that. But things are actually a little bit more intense farther to the south. So notice that once again, around 10 p.m. to midnight, the storms make it past St. Louis, and we start to see some potential supercells forming maybe around Memphis and around portions of southwestern Kentucky. If this actually happens, these storms will be very capable of producing tornadoes. So we're going to be watching this like a hawk around midnight. Once again, this is going to be an overnight threat, and we want everybody out here to be aware of what's going on that night. You've got to have multiple ways of getting warnings. Make sure you can be woken up by a tornado warning. And of course, we're going to be live here monitoring this in real time. And the storms are going to continue off to the east. And my goodness, the tornado threat's just not going to stop. I think from the early morning hours on Saturday all the way into the afternoon, we're going to be dealing with tornadoes and severe thunderstorms from the Ohio Valley all the way down into the deep south. I mean, look at those last couple of frames. Now, once again, this is early in the morning. We've got supercells working over Alabama here, potentially producing tornadoes between 6 and 8 a.m. I mean, just look at what happens here as we go into Saturday. We're seeing potentially some supercells popping up early in the morning between like 5 and 8 a.m. These look tornadic in nature, and that's going to cause a problem of its own. Okay, so this is going to be early in the morning. We've got supercells popping up down here in the deep south, and this is not even the reason why we have that moderate risk. This is actually new information that's just now showing up in some of our convective allowing models. Yeah, and what looks really unfortunate here is that those storms get out of the way and allow for clear air and a destabilizing air mass to take place here in the moderate risk area before we get back into the heating of the day. So this is around 8 or 9 a.m. Storms are still going on here in Mississippi and central and northern parts of Alabama up into Tennessee, and these still could be tornadic in nature, but the real danger area is just now starting to cook up here in this zone right here. And the model doesn't go any farther than that, but unfortunately, this looks like a pretty dangerous situation. And we're about to talk a lot more about that, but first, I have to thank today's awesome sponsor, Vessi, the first 100% waterproof shoe. Guys, I am so stoked to talk about these sneakers, which I love so much. I've been wearing them for the past 3 years, worn those pretty much every day. I've got another pair here that I'm going to wear into the future. Vessis are 100% waterproof, not water resistant, completely waterproof, okay? Our team recently helped out after some historic flooding in our hometown. We was delivering supplies and going around helping families, and we all wore our Vessis, and they held up perfectly, even in the flood mud. And the best part is we just rinsed them off afterwards, and they were good as new. If you're looking for shoes that can handle literally anything that you want to throw at them, these are the ones, Vessis. You're going to want to go down to the link in the description or vessi.com/Ryan Hall to get 15% off your first pair at checkout. Once again, that's vessi.com/Ryan Hall for 15% off your first pair at checkout. I really do think these shoes are the best ones. Go support Vessis because they've been supporting us. And now let's get back into the video. The environment in that warm sector where the clearing is happening is going to support potentially several major supercells during the day on Saturday. This is a forecast sounding that I pulled from the open warm sector, and this is just insane. Okay, we're going to have an incredible amount of wind shear. Everything about this looks pretty much perfect for an incredibly supportive environment for long track violent tornadoes. So that's why we're so concerned about that clear area developing right next to the Gulf, because what's going to happen is supercells will develop in that, and they can track across that entire warm sector and produce tornadoes. We talked about this a little bit the other day. One of the things that we're really concerned about is the low-level jet, and it's going to be pretty much maxed out here by 8 p.m. on Saturday. Any storms that are interacting with this at 8 p.m. are going to be capable of producing intense tornadoes, capable of doing EF2, EF3, maybe even greater damage. So it is very important that you have a way of getting tornado warnings and have a plan in place to get to shelter just in case on Saturday. And another concerning aspect here is that area of wind shear and increased low-level jet stream flow is perfectly aligned with the area of highest moisture, which is something that very rarely happens. That's usually our saving grace when it comes to these severe weather settings setups is that the greatest area of increased kinematics is always displaced from the greatest area of increased thermodynamics. In this situation, they're aligned pretty perfectly, and that's why, unfortunately, it looks like this is going to be the real deal. This is a photo from the National Weather Service in Birmingham, which is tweeting out that all is quiet right now, but they expect to be extremely busy over the next 48 to 72 hours. There's going to be people running around here like crazy, as I imagine that the severe weather situation is going to be quite chaotic as we go into the day on Saturday. And of course, it doesn't stop there. We've got ourselves a day 4 slight risk of severe weather from Pennsylvania all the way down into the Big Bend of Florida area. This is likely going to cause some significant severe weather in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. It currently looks like the threats will be less on Sunday, but it definitely could still be high enough to where we might go live. So we're going to talk a lot about Sunday before the storms start on Friday, because I think once the storms start on Friday, we are not going to get a break to take a breath to do another forecast until this is all over. It's just going to be nonstop tornado warnings. Honestly, I don't know how our live stream schedule is going to work, but we are probably going to be live for 36 hours, potentially straight, or that's probably not possible, but something's going to happen here to where we're live for the majority of the weekend, and we're just going to have to try to sneak in forecasts for you guys on the East Coast, because right now it's just too early to talk about specific details. Let's look at the general overview of the storm, because there are impacts that are going to be felt that are not just severe weather. We're expecting a foot or two of snow over there in the mountains along the west coast from Washington down into California. Blizzard conditions are going to be possible on Friday on the backside here of our major storm. This is going to be happening from Nebraska all the way up into Manitoba. That, of course, includes South and North Dakota. Blizzard conditions, maybe up to 6 inches of snow for some people. That's going to continue into Minnesota. And really, it's not going to be that huge of a deal as far as snow totals go. It's just going to be a lot of wind and a lot of blowing snow. And then you can see our big severe weather events there, and then everything kind of moves towards the East Coast. If you're north of this line, this is mostly going to be wind and rain. We're not really concerned about severe weather up here, but as this line goes across the eastern seaboard, Washington, D.C., Raleigh, all the way down towards Charleston, South Carolina, and Savannah, I think that this is actually a pretty decent severe weather threat for you guys, so we'll be keeping you updated on that. And then things get a little quiet for a little while, so that's good news. But before it gets quiet, things are going to be quite rainy. We're going to have a ton of moisture hitting the Cascades over here. Pretty significant flash flood risk starting today in Southern California, and then lasting through the week all the way up into Northern California, Southwestern Oregon. And then I am also concerned about flash flooding in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley regions. So make sure you guys are prepared for that. Got to update you again on our extremely critical fire risk that now extends from Kansas back into Texas on Friday. While the storms are happening, all of this dry air is going to be racing across the plains, producing probably one of the most prolific fire weather events that this area has seen for quite some time. So that's just another reason to be, paying attention to the weather this weekend. It's going to impact everybody in some way. And I wanted to end this video on a little bit of some good news. I mean, it doesn't cancel out all of the unfortunate news about the severe weather, but before the severe weather hits, one of the things that's fueling it is all of the warm air out in front of it. So it's going to be really nice across the vast majority of the lower 48. Today, tomorrow, and a little bit of Saturday, we're actually going to see record temperatures potentially on Friday here, as a lot of us are going to be in the upper 70s all the way up into Iowa. Look at that huge warm sector there. Everybody in the yellows and oranges is at least going to be experiencing 60 to 70 degree weather. Some places will get close to 80 degrees. And then, of course, that big storm system is going to come through and sweep it all away. And that's why we're having the big severe weather event. And y'all, just to be honest with you, I could talk for hours about this setup coming, but it's a little bit overwhelming. And I can't imagine if you're just trying to get an update for your specific location, like it's hard enough to manage this for the whole country, let alone for, each individual region. But what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm just going to end it here. A general overview, a general tale of caution, like, hey, pay attention to the weather this weekend, because me trying to go any more detailed is just not going to be very useful unless I literally make this video 8 hours long. So what I'm going to do is be very detailed during my live stream tomorrow, which will be more than 8 hours long. So please subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, make sure you tune into that. We're going to be relaying tornado warnings in real time, and every chance that we get, we're going to be talking about the forecast. Here's what's going to happen 5 hours from now. Here's what's going to happen 10 hours from now. And we're going to keep you updated that way. We'll be live Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for at least a large portion of those days. So make sure you turn notifications on so you're alerted to when each one starts. And yeah, this is going to be a big one. So buckle up, and everybody stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.